There's a quiet truth most people overlook. Many aren't stuck because they earn too little, but because money leaves too quietly. Not through big mistakes, but through small habits repeated every day. Years later, the unsettling moment isn't the balance itself, it's realizing you've worked hard, yet life hasn't moved forward. This video isn't about making more money. It's about what's silently holding you back. There is a quiet fear many people carry without ever saying it out loud. It's not the lack of money today, but the moment you look back after years of effort and realize that life hasn't really moved forward. You've been working, you've been trying, you've stayed busy, yet calm never quite settles in, and relief never stays for long. What makes this fear uncomfortable is how subtle it is. It doesn't come from a crisis. It shows up in ordinary days. Money comes in, then goes out. Everything seems fine on the surface. But underneath, there's a constant feeling of missing financial space. It's easy to assume the issue is income, that earning more would solve everything. But perhaps the more important question isn't how much you make, but what quietly happens to your money every day. Not in big decisions, but in small, repeated choices that slowly become invisible. Welcome to Financial Awakening. This isn't a place to tell you what's right or wrong. And it's not about forcing a specific lifestyle. This channel exists to help you look at your relationship with money calmly, honestly, and without pressure. Sometimes, clarity alone can change more than drastic action ever could. In this video, we won't talk about getting rich fast or chasing formulas. We'll simply observe a quiet truth. Money rarely disappears through major choices. It usually leaves silently, through habits so familiar we stop noticing them. Over time, those normal habits shape whether life feels open or constrained. If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing to Financial Awakening. Your support allows this channel to continue creating thoughtful, grounded conversations around money and life. Before we move on, here's a simple question to reflect on. If income stayed the same, what do you feel most affects your sense of financial safety right now? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes, awareness is the first shift. There is something revealing about the way people interact with money. We often spend a lot of time thinking about major decisions, while barely noticing the small actions repeated every day. Yet it is those quiet actions that shape the financial rhythm of a life. Money rarely leaves all at once. It doesn't disappear through dramatic moments. It fades gradually, through familiar choices that no longer feel worth questioning. A small expense that doesn't hurt. A quick card swipe that feels harmless. A purchase that brings brief comfort. None of these moments look like mistakes on their own. But when repeated, they form a pattern, and over time, that pattern determines whether money stays or quietly moves on. Not because of a lack of discipline or intelligence, but because modern life rewards reaction more than awareness. Many of these expenses don't come from real necessity, but from emotional states. When tired, we seek convenience. When stressed, we seek relief. When we feel deserving, we allow spending without reflection. Money stops being a neutral tool and becomes a way to regulate how we feel. The challenge isn't spending itself. It's that money often takes on roles meant for other parts of life. When money is used to compensate for exhaustion, pressure, or emptiness, it rarely stays for long. Not because the spending is wrong, but because money is being asked to solve something it wasn't designed to fix. When we begin to see money as a flow that reflects how we live, rather than just numbers, clarity emerges. Control becomes less necessary. Awareness becomes enough. Each small choice quietly reveals something about our relationship with our time, our energy, and our inner state. And from that awareness, change can begin naturally, without force, without urgency, and without conflict. There is a common misunderstanding about saving, that it requires giving something up. Giving up joy, experiences, or the feeling of enjoying life. Yet what often creates exhaustion isn't spending less, but spending more on things that never truly feel enough. When observed closely, many expenses come from habit rather than need. We spend because it's convenient. We buy because it's familiar. The environment makes it feel normal. And shortly after, the satisfaction fades, leaving behind a quiet sense of lack that repeats itself. Living with less doesn't mean shrinking life. It often means refining it. When quantity decreases, Quality has space to return. A simple meal that feels complete. An afternoon without shopping, yet fully present. An experience that costs little but still becomes a memory. What changes isn't the amount spent, but how fully we are present in the moment. When the mind isn't pulled in many directions, awareness becomes clearer, and that awareness creates a sense of enough. Many begin to notice that the more they try to buy comfort, the stronger the feeling of absence becomes. Yet when they pause, choose more carefully, and accept that not everything is needed, a lighter state emerges. Life doesn't become smaller, it becomes quieter. Spending less, in this sense, isn't a goal, it's a byproduct of living with intention. When long-term value becomes clearer, short-term temptations naturally lose their grip. And when money is no longer scattered across fleeting desires, it gains the ability to support something deeper: stability, flexibility, and future choice. This isn't restraint, it's a quiet form of freedom. At a certain stage of the financial journey, the challenge is no longer about earning more or cutting harder. It becomes about how things are structured. Not a lack of effort, but a lack of calm systems. Not a shortage of money, but the absence of a place for it to stay. Many people live in constant reaction. Bills arrive, they're paid, needs appear, spending follows, convenience guides decisions. Each choice makes sense on its own, yet together they form no clear picture. Money moves through life quietly, but continuously. With reflection, one truth becomes visible. Finances are not a series of isolated decisions, but a pattern of repetition. Small amounts, steady habits, unnoticed over time. And it is here that change can happen without force. Instead of adding something new, value often appears in using what already exists. An item purchased but never fully used. A daily routine that can be slightly adjusted to reduce waste. A living space reorganized in a way that naturally reduces the urge to consume. As excess fades, financial decisions become clearer, not through restriction, but through reduced noise. Each dollar finds a place, not a perfect one, but an intentional one. At this stage, control doesn't come from tracking every number. It comes from familiarity. Familiarity with spending rhythms, with personal limits, with the ability to pause before reacting. Money no longer needs constant attention. It becomes part of a stable flow. Not fast, not dramatic, but steady enough to create a sense of security. And within that security, the mind gains space to think beyond the present moment. That's when life begins to take shape. Not because there is more, but because everything is finally where it belongs. At a certain point, when habits have softened, when spending is no longer reactive, and when life leaks less, a quieter question begins to surface. Not, how to get more, but, what is money meant to support in this life? Money itself carries no meaning. It is neither good nor bad. It simply amplifies the choices already present. In unstable moments, it often becomes a form of comfort. In exhaustion, a way to escape. But when stability slowly forms, money takes on a different role. It creates space for choice. That space is not loud. It doesn't always come with dramatic change. Sometimes it appears as the ability to decline a job driven purely by financial pressure. As the pause before a rushed decision. As the calm of saying, not now, without anxiety. Here, money is no longer a daily pursuit. It becomes a foundation steady enough that life is no longer dictated by short-term fear. When that foundation exists, attention naturally shifts toward deeper questions. Where time is being spent? What pace feels sustainable? And what truly matters in this phase of life? Some might call this financial freedom. Others may not label it at all. What matters more is the sense of lightness that comes from no longer chasing. When money stops pulling the mind forward, presence becomes possible again. The most meaningful change, in the end, does not appear in numbers. It shows up in decision-making. When money is treated as a tool rather than a measure of self-worth, life begins to unfold differently. Slower, quieter, clearer. This is not the end of a financial journey, but it may be the beginning of a healthier relationship with money and with oneself. The journey with money doesn't begin with earning more, but with understanding how money moves through daily life. When small habits are examined and spending becomes less reactive, money stops leaking and starts serving a clearer purpose. It no longer feels like something to chase, but a foundation that creates stability and room for choice. The deeper lesson isn't about numbers, but about relationship. When money is treated as a tool rather than a measure of self-worth, life becomes lighter, calmer, and more intentional. How to apply this is simple. Notice recurring expenses. Keep what truly adds long-term value. And allow space before rushed decisions. Sustainable change often starts quietly, through small actions repeated over time. A question for you. Which expense in your current life no longer feels necessary? If this resonated with you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and consider subscribing to Financial Awakening to support the channel and explore future videos together.